The acid swamp on the moon called Drev 7 had two moods. Most days, it just hissed and bubbled under a sick green sky. But once a week it tried to kill everything that breathed. That was Storm Day. Rel knew the smell of Storm Day before any alarm went off. It was sharp, like burnt wire and old fruit. He was bent under the belly of a freight hauler in his hangar, tightening a bolt that had been loose for 3 jobs in a row. His hands were dark with grease. His back hurt. The radio on his tool belt crackled with the morning weather report, but he had already stopped listening. He climbed out from under the hauler and wiped his face on his sleeve. Outside the open hangar door, the swamp stretched in every direction. Brown water, twisted black trees, a flat sky the color of old soup. The wind had changed. That was the first sign. The second sign came a minute later. The storm siren on the outpost tower began to wail. Rel did not rush. He had run this little repair outpost alone for almost 6 years, and he had learned that panic broke more bones than storms did. He walked to the hangar door and reached for the heavy chain that lowered the outer shield. The chain was cold in his palm. He gave it one slow pull, and the metal wall began to drop. The first drops of acid rain were just starting to tap the roof. They sounded like fingers tapping on a tin cup. That was when he heard the cry. It was thin and very small. At first he thought it was a bird. Drev 7 had a few, ugly things with leather wings. But the cry came again, and it was not a bird. It was something else, something hurting. Rel stopped the chain. The shield was half down. The rain was picking up. He stepped to the door and looked out. The swamp had a long, flat patch of mud just past the landing pad. Most of it was empty, but near the middle something pale was lying in the muck. It did not move much, just a little shiver, like a fish on dry ground. Rel narrowed his eyes. The thing was white, almost glowing white. In a world of brown and black it stood out like a piece of bone. He squinted harder. It had legs, it had a tail, it had a tiny ridge along its back. A hatchling. He had never seen a dragon hatchling up close, but every spacer who came through Drev 7 talked about the dragon clans that lived in the high cliffs to the east. They were proud. They were huge. They did not come near humans, and they did not lose their young. Unless they meant to. Rel looked at the sky. The clouds were yellow now, low and heavy. The rain was no longer tapping. It was hissing. A drop hit the metal door near his hand and left a small black spot that smoked for a second before going still. He should close the shield. That was the smart thing. The thing every mechanic on every frontier moon would do. Close the shield, drink some water, wait out the storm. The little white shape in the mud was not his problem. The dragons of Drev 7 had their own ways, old ways, hard ways. Humans did not mix in. Rel stood there for maybe 3 seconds. Then he cursed under his breath and turned around. He moved fast now. He grabbed his welding tarp from the rack, the thick gray one he used to cover hot engines. He pulled his old respirator off the wall and snapped the strap over his face. He yanked a pair of acid gloves over his hands. The gloves were patched in 2 places. They would hold for a few minutes. Maybe. He pushed the chain up just enough to slip under the shield. The wind hit him hard. It smelled worse out here. The rain was light still, but every drop that touched his coat made a small hiss. He pulled the tarp over his head like a hood and started to run. The mud was deep. His boots sank with every step. He kept his eyes on the pale shape ahead. It was not moving much now, just little twitches, like its body was forgetting how to work. Halfway there, the sky cracked open. A wide sheet of rain came down all at once. Rel felt the burn through the tarp, sharp little bites on his shoulders and arms. He gritted his teeth and pushed harder. His coat began to smoke. He reached the little white shape and dropped to his knees in the mud. It was a hatchling, no bigger than a house cat. Its scales were soft and pure white, the color of fresh paper. Its wings were folded against its back, also white with thin pink veins running through them. Its eyes were open. They were pink too, pink as the inside of a shell. The hatchling saw him and tried to crawl away. It hissed, a weak, dry sound. Its little claws scraped at the mud and slipped. It could not stand. Its back legs shook. Rel saw the marks then. Long claw cuts across its small white back. Not from the storm, from something bigger. Something with claws of its own. His jaw went tight. He did not waste another second. He spread the welding tarp on the mud, scooped the hatchling onto it as gently as he could, and wrapped the cloth around the little body. The hatchling cried out, a thin, scared sound, but it did not bite him. It did not have the strength. Rel pulled the bundle close to his chest, turned his back to the wind, and ran. The rain was a hammer now. The whole sky was yellow. The hangar door looked very far away. Every step back to the hangar felt longer than the one before. The mud sucked at Rel's boots. The acid rain ate small holes in the tarp on his back. He could hear the cloth crackling, soft little pops like fat in a pan. He kept his head down and ran. The hatchling did not move much inside the bundle. Rel could feel its weight against his ribs, light as a folded jacket. Once or twice it shivered, and that was the only thing that told him it was still alive. The shield door was still half open. He could see the yellow strip of light from the hangar lamps cutting through the gray rain. He aimed for it like a man swimming for a boat. His coat had stopped smoking, which was bad. It meant the acid had gone through the top layer and was working on the second one. 20 steps, 10, 5. He hit the metal floor of the hangar on his knees, slid forward, and rolled to one side. The bundle stayed against his chest. With his free hand, he reached up and slapped the red switch on the wall. The shield door dropped the rest of the way with a hard clang. The storm got cut off mid-howl. For a long moment, Rel just lay there on the cold floor, breathing through his respirator. His arms shook. His coat hissed in 2 places on his shoulders. He could feel a hot spot near his neck where the acid had reached skin. But the bundle on his chest was breathing too, small, fast breaths. He could feel them. He pulled the respirator off and tossed it aside. He sat up slowly. He peeled the tarp open. The little white hatchling was curled tight, eyes shut now. Its small chest moved up and down very fast. Its scales were dull, and 3 patches along its back were red and angry from the rain that had soaked through. The claw cuts looked worse in the light, deep, made by something much bigger than the hatchling itself. Rel did not move for a few seconds. He just looked. He had fixed engines for almost 20 years. He had patched ship hulls in vacuum. He had welded shut a coolant pipe with 3 minutes of air left in his tank. But he had never touched a living thing that needed saving. Not really. He let out a slow breath. "All right," he said quietly. "All right, little one." He stood up, careful not to jolt the bundle, and carried the hatchling over to his main workbench. He swept his tools to one side with his arm. Wrenches clattered to the floor. He laid the tarp down flat and unwrapped the small body all the way. The hatchling did not open its eyes. Rel moved fast now, the way he moved when an engine was bleeding fuel and the clock was against him. He grabbed the medkit from the wall, the one he kept for himself, and pulled out the neutralizing gel. It was made for human skin, but the label said it worked on most carbon-based tissue. He had no other plan. He took a clean rag, squeezed gel onto it, and started to wipe the burns. The hatchling jerked at the first touch. Its eyes snapped open. Pink eyes, wide and full of fear. It tried to hiss. It tried to bite. Its small jaws caught Rel's thumb, but the teeth were soft like a kitten's. They did not even break skin. "Easy," Rel said. "Easy. I'm not the one who hurt you." The hatchling kept its jaws on his thumb. It did not let go, but it did not bite harder either. Its eyes locked on his face. It was watching him. Rel kept his other hand moving, slow, gentle. He cleaned the first burn, then the next. He worked his way down the small white back, neutralizing every spot where the rain had eaten in. The hatchling shook the whole time, but it stopped trying to crawl away. After a while, its jaws went slack on his thumb. It just held on like a child holding a finger. When the burns were clean, Rel got warm, coolant water from the engine tank, the clean kind he used for flushing radiators. He poured a little into a shallow pan and dipped a fresh cloth. He bathed the hatchling slowly, careful around the claw cuts on its back. The water ran off pink and brown. He talked the whole time. He did not know if the little thing could understand. He doubted it, but silence felt wrong. "You know," he said, "my old man used to fix tractors back on a dust planet, real dry place, nothing like this swamp." He wrung out the cloth. He said the trick to any broken thing is to slow down. Most people, they panic, they yank, they twist, they make it worse. He dabbed at a small cut. You just got to listen, find what hurts, work from there. The hatchling blinked at him. "Yeah," Rel said, "same idea." When the bath was done, he wrapped the hatchling in a clean thermal blanket from the emergency kit. The blanket was meant for humans in cold space. It was way too big. The little white shape almost disappeared inside it. Only the snout and the pink eyes stuck out. Rel pulled a crate over to the bench and sat down. He set the bundle in his lap. The hatchling stiffened for a moment, then slowly relaxed. Its small head settled against his arm. Outside, the storm screamed at the shield door. Acid drummed on the roof of the hangar. The lights flickered once, twice, then held. Rel looked down at the small face poking out of the blanket. The pink eyes were closing. He sat very still and did not move for a long time. 3 days went by before the little white dragon would eat from a plate. The first day it had only drunk water from a shallow dish, and only when Rel turned his back. The second day it had nibbled at a strip of dried ration but spat it out. The third day Rel tried something new. He warmed a tin of engine room stew on the welder's hot plate, set the tin on the floor, and walked across the hangar to clean a fuel line. He did not look. He just listened. After a long minute he heard tiny claws on metal, then a soft snuffle, then chewing. He smiled without turning around. The hatchling, who Rel had quietly started calling Pale in his own head, was a strange little thing. It did not act like the dragons in the old stories. It did not roar. It did not breathe fire. It barely made any sound at all, but it watched. It watched everything. Every tool Rel picked up, every screw he tightened, every step he took across the hangar floor. Those pink eyes followed him like he was the only fixed point in a spinning world. By the end of the first week, Pale was strong enough to walk. He wobbled at first like a calf on new legs. His tail kept getting in his way. He bumped into a tool box and fell over. Rel laughed out loud, the first real laugh he had let out in maybe a year, and then he felt strange about it, quiet again. He went back to work. By the second week, Pale had figured out the hangar. He knew which corners were warm. He knew which crates were soft on top. He had a favorite spot, a low shelf right next to Rel's workbench, where Rel kept a folded rag and a small heat lamp. Pale would climb up there and sleep with one eye half open while Rel worked. Sometimes Rel would feel a small weight on his shoulder, and he would not even have to look. The little dragon had jumped up to see what he was doing. Rel made him a nest. He took an old engine cradle, a soft padded thing meant to hold a turbine while you fixed it, and lined it with thermal cloth. He put it under the heat lamp. Pale climbed in on the first try, sniffed it all over, and then curled up in a tight white ball with his tail across his nose. That night, Rel sat on the crate next to the cradle and watched him sleep. "I don't know what to do with you," he said quietly. "You know that." The little dragon did not stir. "You'll get big," Rel went on. "Bigger than this hangar, maybe. And then what? I can't feed a full-grown dragon. I can barely feed myself out here." Pale's small side rose and fell. Rel rubbed the back of his neck. The burn there was almost healed now. A pink scar in the shape of a comma. He had a few more on his shoulders. The hatchling had more scars than he did, and his were healing slower. "You came from somewhere," Rel said. "Somebody hurt you, somebody left you out there." His voice was very low. "I should be smart. I should call the survey office, tell them, let them handle it." He did not pick up the radio. He sat there until the heat lamp clicked off on its timer. Then he picked up the lamp, turned it back on by hand, and went to his cot in the corner of the hangar to sleep. In the morning, Pale was on his chest. Rel did not remember the little dragon climbing up there. He just opened his eyes and saw a pair of pink eyes looking back. Pale's small claws were tucked in. His chin was on Rel's collarbone. He looked very serious, like he was guarding something. "Hey," Rel said softly. Pale blinked once. Then he yawned. His little mouth opened wide and a small puff of warm air came out. It smelled like nothing much, a bit like dry grass. Rel let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. The next few days were quiet. The storms came and went. Rel finished the freight hauler job and started on a busted generator a passing trader had dropped off. Pale watched him work. Sometimes the little dragon would pick up a small bolt in his mouth and carry it across the hangar like a treasure. Sometimes he would chase his own tail and tip over. Once he tried to fight a wrench that was bigger than he was. He lost. Rel laughed more in those days than he had laughed in years. He started talking out loud all the time. About the engines, about the weather, about his father who had died on a dust planet a long way from here, about his mother whose face he could barely remember, about the wife he never had, about the kids he never had, about being 41 years old and alone on a moon that tried to kill him once a week. Pale never answered, but he always listened. His head would tilt when Rel got quiet. His tail would tap the floor when Rel laughed. It felt, for the first time in a very long time, like the hangar was not empty. Rel did not know what to call that feeling. He had not had a word for it in so long. He decided he did not need a word for it. He just kept working, and the small white dragon watched him from the shelf, and the days went on, and the swamp outside kept hissing under its yellow sky, and for a little while, Rel forgot to be afraid of what might come next. That was a mistake. The first sign was the birds. The leather-winged birds of Drev 7 were ugly and loud, and they roosted on the radio tower behind the hangar. Every morning at sunrise, they screamed at each other for an hour. It was the worst alarm clock in the galaxy. Rel had grown used to it. That morning, there was no screaming. Rel sat up on his cot. He listened. The hangar was quiet. The swamp outside was quiet. Pale was already awake, standing on his shelf, his small head turned to the south, his pink eyes very wide. The little dragon was not moving. He was barely breathing. Rel felt the hair on his arms lift. He stood up slowly and walked to the outer shield. He pressed his ear to the metal. He could not hear wind. He could not hear water. He could not hear birds. He could hear wings. Not small wings, big wings, the kind of wings that move so much air you feel them through a wall. Rel turned around. Pale had not moved. The little dragon was staring at the wall, his whole body stiff, like he could see straight through it. "They came back," Rel said. His voice sounded thin in his own ears. He went to his bench. He took the old plasma cutter, the heavy one, off its hook. He checked the charge. Full. He set it on the bench where he could grab it fast. He moved the coolant sprayer next to it. He opened the locker under the bench and pulled out the magnetic clamps, the big industrial kind he used for hull work. He laid them out in a line. Pale watched him with those pink eyes. "Don't worry," Rel said. He was not sure who he was talking to, maybe both of them. "I fix things, that's what I do." He went to the side window, the small one near the door, and looked out. There were 6 of them. They had landed in a wide circle around the hangar, crushing the swamp grass flat under their weight. They were huge. The smallest of them was bigger than the freight hauler in his bay. Their scales were dark green and bronze, the color of old metal left in rain. Their wings were folded against their backs. Their eyes were yellow. Each of them had a long neck and a head full of teeth. In the center of the circle stood the biggest one of all. Her scales were the deep red of dried blood. Her wings were torn at the edges from old fights. Her eyes were not yellow like the others. Her eyes were silver. The eldest, it had to be. She was looking right at the hangar door, and somehow, even through the metal, Rel felt like she was looking right at him. The radio on his belt crackled. There were no humans for 100 miles, so it was not a voice. It was something else. A long, deep sound, like a horn underwater. It came again. And again. 3 times. A summons. Rel took a slow breath. He looked back at Pale. The little white dragon was shaking now. His small claws were dug into the shelf. His tail was wrapped tight around his own body. He had pulled himself into the smallest shape he could make. Rel walked over to him. He did not pick him up. He just put his rough hand on the small white head very gently. "Stay here," he said. "Under the bench, behind the toolboxes. You don't come out, you hear me." Pale made a tiny sound, not a hiss, not a cry, something in between. Rel lifted him down, carried him to the back of the bench, and tucked him into the dark space behind a row of crates. He moved a heavy box in front, hidden. Then he went to the shield door. He did not bring the plasma cutter. He did not bring the coolant sprayer. He did not bring a single tool. He pulled the chain and raised the shield 3 feet. He bent down and walked out into the open with his hands at his sides. The dragons did not move. 6 pairs of yellow eyes locked onto him, 1 pair of silver. Rel stopped in the middle of the landing pad. He looked up at the eldest. "Morning," he said. The eldest's head lowered until her snout was level with his chest. Her breath was hot and smelled like burnt stone. She was so close he could have touched her teeth. He did not move. She spoke. Her voice was not in his ears, it was in his chest, deep and slow. "You hold what is ours." Rel met her silver eyes. "I hold what was thrown away," he said. The dragons around the circle hissed, heads lifted, wings shifted. The eldest did not move. "He is broken," she said, "pale of scale, weak of bone. The storm was meant to take him. That is the way, that is the law." "The storm didn't take him," Rel said. "I did." The eldest's silver eyes narrowed. "Then you have stolen from the clan." "He wasn't yours anymore," Rel said. His voice was quiet, but it did not shake. "You left him. He's not stolen. He's saved." A long silence. Then the eldest's head lifted slowly into the air. She turned to the 6 around her. They snarled. They beat their wings against the ground. The grass flattened in waves. "Return him," the eldest said, "or this place burns." Rel did not answer. He just looked up at her. Behind him, very quiet, he heard a small scratching sound. The sound of tiny claws on metal. The sound of something that should have stayed hidden, coming out anyway. Rel closed his eyes for 1 second. Then he opened them and stood his ground. The first fire came from the dragon on the left. It was a short blast, more warning than attack, a stream of orange flame that hit the side of the hangar and ran down the wall in burning rivers. The metal screamed. The paint blistered. Rel felt the heat on his face from 30 steps away. He ran. Not away. Sideways. He had drilled this in his head 100 times last night, lying awake on his cot, listening for wings. He did not run for the door. He ran for the side of the hangar where the cargo crane stood, and he hit the red button on its base as he passed. The big magnetic crane hummed to life. Its huge round head, used to lift engine blocks, swung out fast on its long arm. It came around in a wide arc and slammed into the side of the nearest dragon, the one who had breathed the fire. The dragon staggered. Its claws skidded on the wet ground. It hissed in surprise. Rel did not stop. He hit the second button on the crane and the magnet flipped to full power. The dragon's bronze chest scales locked onto the metal head. It was pinned, stuck to a piece of human machinery, flailing its wings. The other dragons turned in shock. Rel was already at the next station. He grabbed the coolant sprayer, the heavy one on the hose reel. He turned the valve. White cold mist blasted out in a thick wide spray. It hit the second dragon full in the face. The dragon roared and pulled back. Its scales frosted over in an instant. It could not see. "Two down," Rel muttered, "four to go." The third dragon launched into the air. It dove at him from above, claws first. Rel rolled under the cargo lift and the claws hit the metal floor where he had been a second earlier. Sparks flew. He came up on the other side and hit a different button. A row of bright welding lamps along the ceiling snapped on at full power, all aimed down. The dragon was caught in white light, blinded mid-dive, and crashed into a stack of empty fuel drums. The drums went everywhere. Rel was already moving. He had spent years in this hangar. He knew where every switch was. He knew where every loose bolt was. He knew which floor panel would lift if you stepped on the corner just right. The dragons were stronger than him. They were faster than him. They were bigger than him by 100 times. But this was his hangar. The fourth dragon tried to flank him from behind. Rel saw its shadow on the floor and dropped flat. The dragon overshot and crashed into the plasma cutter rack. Tools went flying. Rel rolled, came up with the plasma cutter in his hand, and fired a tight blue beam at the dragon's wing joint. Not to kill, to burn. The dragon screamed and pulled back. It would not fly again for a long time. 3 down, 3 to go. Rel was breathing hard. His shoulder was bleeding from somewhere. He did not look. He turned to face the rest. The eldest had not moved. The other 2 dragons were closing in from both sides. Slower now, angrier. They had seen what happened to the first 3. They were not going to make the same mistakes. Rel backed up toward the bench. His plasma cutter was almost out of charge. His coolant sprayer was 20 steps away. The crane was still busy holding the first dragon. The welding lamps were still blazing. The 2 dragons rushed him together. Rel did the only thing he could. He threw the plasma cutter at the left one and dove for the bench. The cutter hit and the dragon flinched. The right one did not. It caught him with its claws and slammed him hard into the wall. The breath went out of him. He hit the floor on his back. The dragon pinned him. Its huge clawed foot came down on his chest, not crushing yet, just holding. Its yellow eyes burned down at him. Its mouth opened, teeth came down. Then something white moved. Pale shot out from behind the crate so fast Rel almost did not see him. The small white hatchling leaped, his tiny wings flapping for the first time in his short life, and he sank his soft baby teeth into the big dragon's wing. It was not a strong bite. It was a kitten bite on a tank, but it was enough. The big dragon jerked its head sideways in shock. Its weight shifted off Rel's chest by an inch. That was all Rel needed. He pulled the small backup coolant canister from his belt, the one he kept for emergencies, and jammed the nozzle straight up against the dragon's throat scales. He squeezed. A burst of frozen mist exploded right under the dragon's jaw. The scales there were soft. They iced over instantly. The dragon could not close its mouth. It could not breathe in. It panicked and stumbled backward off of Rel into the side of the hangar wall. Rel rolled onto his hands and knees, coughing. Pale was already at his side, the little white shape pressed against his arm, shaking but still there, still fighting. The last dragon, the one that had not joined the rush, took a step back. The eldest, who had watched the whole battle without moving, slowly lowered her great red head. Her silver eyes were not angry now, they were something else. The fires in the hangar crackled. The pinned dragon on the crane stopped struggling. The frosted one rubbed its face on the ground. The blinded one whimpered. The burned wing one curled up. The frozen throat one breathed in long, shaky gasps. 5 fully grown dragons, beaten by 1 human mechanic, and a hatchling the size of a cat. The eldest stared at Rel. Rel stared back. He was bleeding, he was shaking, he could barely stand. Pale climbed up his leg and onto his shoulder and stayed there, small claws hooked in his shirt. Nobody moved. The silence was bigger than the storm had ever been. Smoke drifted up from the hangar roof in slow gray ropes. The swamp was very still. Even the wind had stopped, like the moon itself was holding its breath. Rel stood in the middle of the broken landing pad with Pale on his shoulder. His coat was burned through in 3 places. His left arm hung lower than the right. There was blood on his temple that he could not remember getting. He should have been on the ground. He should have been crawling. He was not, he was standing. The eldest walked toward him. Each step shook the dirt. Her huge clawed feet sank into the mud and pulled out with a wet sound. She stopped 2 paces away. Her head was so big that her snout was almost as wide as Rel himself. He could feel her breath on his face. It was hot and heavy and smelled like the inside of a forge. She did not speak. Rel did. His voice was rough from smoke. It was not loud. It did not need to be. There was nothing else making a sound for 100 miles. "You came here," he said, "and you told me to give him back. You called him broken. You called him weak. You said the storm was supposed to take him because that is your way, your law." The eldest's silver eyes did not move from his. "I'm going to tell you about my way," Rel said. "About human law. We don't have a lot of it. We argue about most of it. But there is one thing we all agree on, every human, every world, every time. We do not leave our young in the rain." The other dragons were watching now. The pinned one on the crane, the frosted one, the blinded one, the one with the burned wing, the one with the frozen throat, all of them were looking at him. "I don't care how small he is," Rel said. "I don't care if his scales are white instead of green. I don't care if his eyes are pink. I don't care if he can't breathe fire. I don't care if every one of you says he is wrong. He is not wrong. He is just little, and he is alive, and I am not giving him back to people who tried to kill him for being born." He took 1 step forward, toward the eldest. He should not have done it. She could have ended him in half a heartbeat. He did it anyway. "He chose me," Rel said. His voice was very quiet now. "Out in the mud. When I picked him up he could have bitten me, he could have run, he stayed, and I chose him, right back. That makes him mine, not yours, mine." Pale moved on his shoulder. The little white dragon stretched out his small neck and looked up at the eldest, right into her huge silver eyes. He did not hide. He did not shake. His tail wrapped around the back of Rel's neck and held on. The eldest looked at the hatchling for a long, long time. Then she did something nobody, on Drev 7, had ever seen a dragon of her line do. She lowered her great red head all the way to the ground. Her horns dug into the mud. Her chin touched the dirt. She bowed. Behind her, slowly, the other dragons did the same. The pinned one bent its neck where it stood. The frosted one, the blinded one, the burned one, the frozen one, all of them lowered their heads. The eldest spoke. Her voice came up from the ground, soft now, deep as a well. "No dragon of my blood has ever stood with a human," she said. "No human has ever stood for a dragon. The old law says he should have died. The old law has been quiet a long time. Maybe the old law is tired. Maybe it has forgotten things." She lifted her head. Her silver eyes were on Pale now. "Little white one," she said, "you are not cast out. You are not broken. You are something new. The clan does not have a word for what you are. We will make one. In time." Pale made a small sound in his throat. It was not a hiss. It was not a cry. It almost sounded like a hum. The eldest looked at Rel. "Mechanic," she said, "keeper of fire and frost. You have shamed 5 of my line with your hands and your tools. You have spoken words that I have no answer to. You are strange to me. Humans are strange to me. But strange is not the same as wrong. We will remember this day." She lifted her great body. Her wings opened. The wind from them pushed Rel back a step. "The white one is yours," she said, "and you are his. The clan will not return for him. The clan will not return for you. Live long, small ones, both of you." She turned. The others rose with her, even the pinned one who Rel freed with a slow push of the crane button. They walked out of the landing pad, away from the hangar into the swamp. One by one, they lifted into the sky on heavy wings, until they were small shapes against the clouds, and then they were gone. Rel stood there for a long time. His knees finally gave. He sat down hard in the mud right where he was. Pale climbed down from his shoulder and into his lap. The little white dragon curled up there and tucked his small head under Rel's hand. His wings folded. His tail wrapped around Rel's wrist. The yellow clouds above the swamp began to break apart. Real sunlight, thin and pale, came through the gap. It touched the burned hangar. It touched the mud. It touched the small white dragon. It touched Rel. It was the first sunlight Drev 7 had seen in 9 days. Rel looked down at the hatchling in his lap. "Well," he said softly, "looks like it's just you and me, little one." Pale opened one pink eye, closed it again. Rel smiled, very tired, very quiet, and put his rough hand on the small white head. The swamp was still. The sky was clearing. And somewhere up there, far above them, a clan of dragons flew home with a story to tell.